Alright guys, let's make a knife. This is a commission build for a customer that makes game calls out of wood and epoxy, and he sent me some of his epoxy and wood and asked me if I could put it on a knife handle for him, and I said absolutely I can, and so that's what we're doing in this video. Here we are just cutting out the shape out of some pitted steel. This is high carbon steel. This is what I usually use. I prefer it for a number of reasons. If you'd like to see a video on why I prefer this type of steel and the steels I use, just let me know in the comments. Again, here we are. I just flattened that out after I got the rough shape cut out, and here I'm just traced it out and drilling the hole there for the sharpening choil, and we got that done. And now we'll just clean up the tang and the scales and the rust off of all that. In this particular video, I did not have a lot of belts for my belt sander handy. I was running very low, and so I did a lot of the work with an angle grinder and a flap disc that I generally would just do on my belt sander, but my belts were worn out and not cutting very well. So it was just faster to use the angle grinder on a lot of this. And so you'll see that. Here we are just cleaning up that profile a little bit and making it look like we want it to look. We've got the outline on there of the pattern that the guy liked and that he wanted to match it to. And so here we're just trimming that handle down, trimming that blade down, and getting it into a shape that we really like. Here we are tracing out where we want our grind lines and our pins and all that, and drilling pinholes. And we got one lanyard hole in this and then two 1/8" pins at the front, and we just got those drilled. And here we're just going to start the bevels with a flap disc. Again, usually I do this all on my belt sander, but I did not have any sharp belts when I was making this knife, and so this just saved me a little bit of time to do it with a flap disc that I had handy just to get started and then clean it up with the more precise belt sander. And on a side note of sorts, I don't usually make videos of my knife making process. This is a first for me, so definitely if you enjoy this video and this process, let me know in the comments, give me a like, and let me know what I should do different or better. But please note, I am a professional knife maker. I am not a professional video maker. So please be generous. I know there's mistakes and it's not a perfect video. But if you enjoy it, let me know, and I'll work on making more of these and making them better. Here we are, just cleaned up those bevels on the belt sander, and now we're cleaning up the plunge lines with a file, both sides, making it nice and even on that sharpening choil. And here we're just using some needle files to put in the thumb ridges on the thumb ramp where we wanted those at, just to add those in there, just a quick little touch. And here we're just bringing those edges, those bevels up to 120 grit just before we heat treat. And here's the heat treat. It doesn't take very long in 16 speed. It takes a lot longer in real life. But there's the quench, and here we're just back at 120 grit, cleaning the scale off of those bevels so we can tempo with a torch. We can get a nice back tempo. You'll see that in just a second. There it is, nice back tempo with a torch. And I can explain how that works in another video too if you'd like. And here we just started hand sanding. On this particular knife, we're going for a satin finish. So we're just making sure that all the scratches run the right way so that they're lengthwise with the blade, and using some WD-40 here to lubricate it and just wet sand it out to about 120 grit. We didn't really go any higher than that because we just wanted a nice satin finish. We weren't really going for a mirror look or anything, just a nice dull gray look on it. And here we are moving on to the handle, and there you can see some of that epoxy block that I was going to use for the handles on this, and we just measured, marked, and cut out some scales out of this, and I tried to book match the scales, but it ended up that the one was a little too thick and I had to take quite a bit off of the one side once I got it glued up, and so they ended up not book matching very well. But I'm going to practice that some more and work with it, and I think that in the future we can get some really, really beautiful book match scales out of this epoxy as well. But I like the way it turned out anyways, and I hope the customer does too. So here we are, just drilled those holes through with some clamps, marked out where we needed it, cut the end off here real quick, sand it down. Didn't get all that on video. It's really hard to keep up with the camera. Makes the process take a lot longer when you're trying to keep up with the camera and angles and make sure you get everything videoed and all that. Here's the glue up after we flattened the scales on our disc sander. Just started those pins, epoxy, and glued it all up just like that. Put it in a vise, put clamps on the top. Sorry for the bad footage, I'm kind of in the way. Glue up kind of gets rushed and I didn't have a lot of time to set the camera. Here we are taking the clamps back off after it dried, and just pretty simple stuff here. Just sand the pins down, sand the handle scales down, and here we just profile the handle to make it match the tang perfectly so that everything's nice and flush. And then we'll just grind it down till we get the handle to the thickness that we like. And here we're using a slack belt to just start those bevels just a little bit, and then take some hand sanding paper and just knock the corners off. We didn't want an extremely rounded handle on this particular knife, so this is how we chose to do it, and it turned out really well, and I really like the way it looks. And so that's what we're doing here. And I went ahead and sanded it from 120 all the way up to 800 grit, but I did not video that because it was really boring to watch me stand there and sand this handle over and over and over again, and it takes a long time. So I just skipped all of that footage and skipped right to the buffing, which you can see happening here. I'm buffing it out with some rouge and then with a clean wheel. Went ahead and buffed that and the blade. And then I just mixed up some epoxy, some quick setting epoxy clear, and coated the whole handle. Just kind of painted it on there with a foam brush, just to kind of fill in any gaps or voids or scratch marks that may have been left, anything like that. That second coat of epoxy just cleans all that up. And then once that dried, I came back and resanded that just to make sure it's perfectly smooth, and I sanded that with 400 to 800 grit sandpaper just to make sure it's perfectly smoothed out and no bumps or voids or anything like that in the handle, and that turned out pretty well as well. And here we are rebuffing it again the second time, and then we'll rebuff it on the clean wheel as well. There's that right there happening. And here we're just sharpening the blade with a couple different belts up to 800 grit. And it's, again, terrible footage, but it does shave. And I know you can't see it. You'll just have to take my word for it on this one here. And once we got it shaven sharp, we moved on to putting the touch mark on it with a homemade acid etching device that I made out of a charger. If you'd like to see a video on how that works, just let me know in the comments. And then it was finished, and there is the finished blade. Let me know in the comments if you like how this turned out, and if you think I should make more epoxy and wood handled knives. Thanks for watching.